Hey, Raunaq, Anubhav here. Are you joining?
I just started the broadcast. So hello guys, this is Nikunj. I'm the co-founder at CutShot.
Wait, let me send you an email.
You can see my slide deck. So welcome to the event UX Wizards today. I just wanted to take a minute to set up the ground for what exactly we are trying to do the event and also give you an introduction of CutShot. So before we start, I just wanted to introduce you to CutShot. So basically, the problem that we are trying to tackle at CutShot is to connect you with the right people. Uh, now, the and the whole focus is to make the connect hassle free. And when we say hassle free, the whole idea is that the world is noisy out there. So when you want to connect with say employers or you want to connect with people who are uh, looking out for jobs and you want to reach out to them, or maybe you want to reach out to mentors. Uh, there are a lot of use cases when you want to reach out to people who are professionals and you want some professional help. But your current alternatives are LinkedIn, job platforms, and all of those are noisy. You are good, you have talent, you have a network, but then you kind of your voice gets lost, in all these platforms. So what we are doing at Cut Short is trying to reduce the whole, your long path and cutting it short. So they are, and how do we do that? So we do that by using, simplistic things like gamification, and also combine them with the power of AI-based matching algorithms and unleashing the power of your trusted network. So that's how we let you connect your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn connections, and we try to give you the common connections. We try to give you recommendations through your network, and we try to overall reduce your work in looking out for jobs, in hiring people, or for some other use cases. So why are we doing events like this, right? So UX Wizards, and we have done in the past, we have done some more events like this, and we have plenty of events coming up. The idea of these events is to make those connects even faster and get everyone on the same page on one single day, and try to compress the whole the path even further. And it also being a part of the startup community and being the part of the design development, marketing, and all of those communities. We also want to learn from you and learn from the community and share our learnings with other people. And this is one of those attempts. uh, and I hope you enjoy the event. There will be a feedback and survey link, so please tell us how we can improve, how are we doing, what other events you want us to organize in future. So with that, today, for this event, we have three speakers from the industry, all energetic, enthusiastic, design experienced people. So first one is Raunaq, who's the product designer at Baloonr, and then there is Mohit, who works at Globant, and there is Manoj, who leads design practices at Wow Labs. So these people will have interesting topics to share with you on the UX, in the UX area. Uh, and also, we also have companies that are looking to hire from the top UX talent like you, who are tuning in today to listen to these speakers, also share and be a part of the community. So there are a lot of companies that are interested in talking to you guys. Some of them are listed here, and many of them will join in in next 1 or 2 days as well. So don't forget to create a short profile if you are interested in jobs at these companies. You will see or create a short profile button. Click on that and create a profile so that these companies and the people at these companies who are hiring can contact you. So with that, I will first speech or first talk that we had was from Ronak, but it seems he's stuck somewhere. So Mohit is there. He's already online. He is with us. As I said, he works at Globant. So I will let him start his talk, and in the meantime, Ronak will also join in. So then we can start the next talk about the Pokemon UX that he's going to talk about. So Mohit, can you start?
Hey Nikunj, yes, I can. I'll
Okay,
just
all right.
one second.
So Mohit, the way this works is this is a broadcast, so people are able to see and people are able to see your slide deck. People are able to ask you questions. So
Mhm.
we have a Q&A widget on the right side. So we are going to have all these questions. So people are encouraged to ask you questions there. After your talk at logical points, we will pick up these questions for you, and then perhaps you can answer those questions.
Sure thing.
Uh,
Great.
right.
Uh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Let's start.
Okay. Yeah, okay, guys. So there's a topic which is quite prominent these days, and it's talking about customer experience. So there are a lot of companies which are working in UX domain presently, and typically when I say UX, we have certain perception in mind, and then what is CX? A lot of people are still unaware of the term, and a lot of companies are not even focusing on customer experience for now. So this presentation is basically a very high level view and an effort to educate people as to what significance customer experience can bring into the entire paradigm of experience design for global companies. Yes. So I'll just begin with this and I'll try to keep it short so that we can interact later on within the given time span that we have. So if you can see here, the customers may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So I will begin from the very nascent thing, which is prominent everywhere, which is called experience, right? So we in today's world we target everything as how would this be felt as an experience by the end user. So a user would never forget how you make them feel, but they can forget your brand messages, they can forget your marketing jargons, etc. Right? So what is an experience? It's an event or an occurrence which leaves an impression on someone, right? So something happens, it excites me, it delights me, I go and talk about it to someone else, and that is how it becomes viral. And
Yeah, Joel.
right. So coming to the
Okay.
primary question as to why do businesses need to design experience first of all. So taking a very philosophical understanding into this, it's like every organization or every company, they want to be the moon, right? Why moon? So moon has a lot of characteristics which align to its existence. Few of them are listed down here. One is storytelling. So there are plenty of
Right.
stories which are associated with moon, right? Everyone has their own perception, everyone has their own beliefs. That is how an organization tells the story to the users, and then the second part where the users perceive it in a way. There is certain value attached to moon, and when I say value, it is not just in a tangible form. It can be an emotional value, it can be something where you're expecting an experience or assistance, and something comes and pops out and helps you. So there are plenty of organizations which design products to help you ease out your daily work or other stuff, right? So there's certain amount of value which is associated to it. And then third is inspiration. So whatever a brand is, it inspires people in a way, and that is how we align our likes and dislikes to certain brand or a story which has been told about us or about a business. Right? Let's take a few case studies. These are some one or two prominent examples which we face across every time, and one is air travel, right? So a lot of mobile applications or web applications have been redesigned again and again to give you a very convenient experience of booking easily, right? So booking a ticket is an experience in itself, and then a lot of apps take care of it in a very intuitive way and a very easy way. But what happens when you reach the airport? Right? You stand in long queues. Your luggage has been thrown, like mishandled. Your luggage, or maybe your flight is missed, whatsoever. So there are plenty of touch points. There are plenty of things that happens in an air travel journey which may not be taken care of. So the first thing is very well designed, but the next thing it's goofed up. So what happens then? So this is just a thought, and we'll come back to it again. This is another experience. This is another case study which I also feel this a lot of times, and hence I added it. Probably you will be relating to it. So on a weekend, let's take an example of Pune, and you're trying to book a resort or a hotel room on a weekend to for a getaway. the hotel is overbooked. What happens then? Your experience has broken before it started. So can we do something when a hotel is booked? How can the hotel or that organization or that business take care of your expectations or your motivations of going on a weekend trip and staying at X and X place? So these are broken experiences, and isolated user experience cannot take care of these things. Hence, customer experience, right? So then the question comes: is this user experience? No, it's not. So we are looking into wrong directions and then trying to solve problems. So in businesses, a single touch point like an application or a website may not solve the entire picture or do not give you an entire experience. It just handles that individual touch point. You need something else too, right? So what do we do to solve today's problem? It's like we are designing in isolation and we are ignoring multiple channels and other touch points. So in the further slides, we'll come to what are channels and what are touch points for a business. But right now, we are focusing only on a single thing. So when we talk about UX, it's more of design and implementation of a single user touch point to make it easier and more enjoyable to use. Okay? And then comes customer experience. So what is customer experience? The definition is, it is the design and implementation of customers' experiences with all the channels, and of course, including a specific product like an app. And then there's a constant conflict between UX and CX in the organization. So now what happens in the typical world right now, since this is a new concept, there are different teams for customer experience, there are different teams for user experience, and they always wrestle. So the idea is to go hand in hand. And if you see, if you take an example of an air travel, you are booking a ticket, but then at that point of time, within the mobile application, you have certain inputs which can trigger a customer experience for a business. So they go hand in hand. They are not isolated exercises. So how does CX elevates your business? It takes care of all the touch points basically in from taking a user from point A to point B. There's an omni-channel experience, right? So if you're using a mobile application or using a web application, or if you're using a kiosk, you may be at a counter. So these are different channels to in any business experience, and it takes care of all of these. Just to give you a quick example, yesterday I was typing a mail over Gmail in my web browser, and for some reason I had to shut it off and just leave. And while on move, I opened my mobile Gmail application, and it was, continue your draft here. And I clicked on it, I typed it, and I just sent it. So this is the omni-channel experience that we talk about, right? Identifying blind spots, and then there are various techniques in which you can identify the blind spots in your entire organization's services offerings, and hence taking care of different customer experiences at different points. Right? It helps you identify what is wrong with your with whatever actions the user is taking at different touch points. So you get a lot of data which probably you miss, and you cannot connect the dots without plotting them or without mapping them. Then a company, then an organization has a lot of customer retention if customer experience is taken is from point A to point B through and through, and in turn it results in more and more profitability. So these 4-5 points, these are just to tinker and the thought that the scale of customer experience is really huge, and these are some just very high level ideas which I'm sharing. Now, just to give you an example of channels and touch points, as I mentioned earlier, so here, this is a case study of booking a hotel room and then checking in and checking out. It's a very simple exercise. So if you see on the left, there are channels. So hotel reception, website, and mobile app. These are the channels. And then the boxes that you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the touch points. So at each touch point, there will be certain motivation for the user to do something. There are certain expectations, and then there are certain results out of it which will make the user go ahead in the journey and get a good experience. So if you see, the user is exploring for room options on the website. He moves ahead and he books a room on a mobile application for any reason. And from mobile, he moves to hotel reception, which is the check-in, right? So there is a physical intervention of your service. From there, the user moves on to enter a room with a mobile key. Then again, he's using his mobile application. And then again, the user goes to hotel reception for checkout. So just a very high level idea of how touch points and channels interact with each other and how detailed you can map the entire journey of your user. Right? This is a case study for Rail Europe, which they did, and what you see right now is the touch point chart. So this is about identifying how many touch points can be there in different number of channels. So if I can just take you on a very high level, if I can explain, there are different channels like website, call center, mobile. There are customer relations, call centers, etc. And then at each stage, like researching stage, shopping stage, booking, traveling, and post-travel. So these are the different stages, and each stage you can map every channel and identify what all could be the touch points. Now, if you just take an example of shopping versus website, so what does a user do at this particular stage on this channel? So he schedules for a lookup, price lookup, multi-city lookup, and a past comparison. So these are few activities that he does. Now, for these activities, there are certain level of motivation, goals, and then there are some challenges, there are some expectations of the result, and then that will take forward, then takes the user forward into the next stage. So if you see here, there are a lot of touch points, and if you goof up with, let's say, a couple of them, there is a very good chance of screwing up the entire customer experience that a user can have with Rail Europe, right? So this is one, and this is the customer journey mapping. I hope many of you would have seen this or maybe know about it. Customer journey mapping is, again, at each stage, there are different activities that are being done on multiple channels again. So if you can see on the left column, it says doing, thinking, feeling, and what is the experience. So basically, you're breaking down the user's emotions by doing what, or by observing what he's doing and what he's thinking at that point of time. And that experience itself will give you some ideas as to how you can eliminate whatever dips you are having in the emotions. And then you can go on and plot the opportunities at each stage. So these are just one or two tools which we use in customer experience. There are plenty more tools, and there are an exercise in itself. So these are like the basics of it, and without these you cannot proceed. So just wanted to share these with you in some context. That is it. Any questions, anything you want to discuss, would be happy to discuss it.
Yes, Mohit. So there are a few questions. The first one is from Saurabh Suman.
Mhm.
Interesting question for startups. How does one convince the founders that both UX and CX go hand in hand? Any tips from previous experiences?
Okay, so I mean, I can talk in terms of clients. Like I work in an organization, and we used to focus a lot on user experience. And recently, lately, we have started involving customer experience into our exercises. So what happens is, if you take an example of a UX exercise, it will definitely lead to some gaps in the customer experience. Okay, so let me think of an example. Mm, I can't really think of one, but let's say we took the example of booking your hotel room, right? So there's a mobile application which you're using to enter the room. Now, from a user experience point of view, what you will do is you will plot the, you will try to map the user flows, task flows. You'll create an architecture for that app, and there will be different features into it and everything. But you did not really capture what happens before and what happens after using that particular app, and what led the user to use that app. So if there's a problem at a check-in, he would never lead to that app, and there can be a problem with the app itself, but how you tackle it, that is a customer experience, right? You did not consider probably the lighting environment of that scenario. You did not consider the, let's say, what happens if the user checks in or maybe opens the wrong room with that key itself. What happens if that happens? There are a lot of touch points that can happen which will eventually dip the customer experience in terms of emotions, and that you need to cater to. So the best way of doing it for people who are ignorant about customer experience is to map it proactively and then take to them and tell them, hey, these are the scenarios which can possibly exist and we didn't even think of them. So do you want to go ahead and explore these areas too, and that might completely revamp the experience of your product. Does that answer your question? I mean, That is a
So basically, what you are you suggesting that we suppose there's a founder who is not understanding the difference between UX and CX, and
Mhm.
you as the in charge of the CX journey of each customer, you basically just need to take the CEO or the founder to a live environment where the user actually is facing problems, and then basically do dog fooding sort of thing where you take them and show them that your ratings are down, or like on your Play Store, 15% people have given one rating, not
Mhm.
because your UX was bad, but because the CX was bad, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, not precisely taking him to that spot, but I think this is a good idea of showing him what negative experiences people have shared. And it could be as simple as asking him that question of book, right? If he's talking only about the UX and you ask him a question, okay, what happens if so and so thing happens? Did you ever think of that? That we have a tool that we can help you plot the journey from point A to point B, and we can give you like hundreds of points where the experience is dropping, and you can have a tangible tool which can you can eventually prove that, see, this is how it has changed. So if you can give them a parametric, some formula that, okay, you can calculate the experience that you have uplifted by doing this exercise, I think that is the way it works.
Right. Okay. And then I'll encourage people to ask follow-up questions if they have any. The next question is from Abhay. He's basically asking if so CX is basically improving experiences for users at several touch points. Is that what CX is all about?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
So CX is basically improving experiences for users at several touch points. Is that the definition of CX?
Yes. So touch points on different channels also, as if you remember, there was a slide which said omni-channel, right? So the experience has to be seamless across different channels, and touch points, of course, it has to be. So just to give you a small quick example, how everything came into picture, right? So initially, when you have these web devices, how did usability start, and how UX came into picture, right? So UX is pretty new, and when you started doing UX, now in the enterprise applications, we see that every enterprise product looks same. Then there's a trend of consumerization of enterprise applications where, be it a data server management, be it security, be it any domain, be it banking, everyone is consumerizing it, and more or less the experience remains same. Now the problem is in the entire journey. So at your particular touch point on your web application or your mobile application, it's great, it's superb. What happens after that? And what happens before that? That is where the problem arises, and that is customer experience.
Right. Okay. Next question is again from Saurabh. So he's basically asking any good resources that you can suggest for for people who want to make a journey map for their customers.
Mhm. See, journey maps are pretty standard. I mean, every project or every problem, every organization is different and their needs are different. So there are instances where we had to do emotional mapping, where we had to draw charts of different, elevation and then fall of moods at different stages. There were instances where we didn't have to do that. So it definitely it depends on how and what problem you're trying to solve. But if you Google customer journey mapping, you will get like hundreds of examples, and then you can pick up what suits your need. Just to start with, once you get in the flow of how to plot a journey and understand and get into the user's shoe, probably you can come up with your own tool, which you can point out that these are the problems at these stages and these touch points. I'd just like to add one. There's a book called "This Is Service Design." So this is a new topic which I'm talking about. So service design is an extended version of customer experience. In service design, it is about the front stage and backstage. So if you were to say customer experience, it becomes the front stage, and the service offerings and the service, how a service works, like my sales channels or my campaigns and etc things, these are my service, so these becomes back end, so connecting the front end and back end. So but from that book you can get a lot of ideas about how to map, and you can get a lot of value from that book in terms of experience as well.
All right, so we are a bit short on time on this one. We need to start with the next talk. There are more questions, Mohit. So there's one again from difference between CX and user experience from Let's Nurture Designer. I think you have answered that already. And there's one more from Sana. What we'll do is we'll take this question in the end if we have time left.
Sure.
In the meantime, about the resources, I think that's an interesting question about what resources to use. So maybe what we can do, Mohit, if you're okay with that, maybe you can just share the links of your favorite tools or your favorite resources, and
Sure.
then whoever is interested, leave us a note on the messaging thing that we have on the website. We will pass on the link to those resources if you're interested.
I can do that. And if there's if time is less and anything, you can connect me over my email that I have provided in the
Right.
presentations file as well.
Right. So can you, I mean, do you want me to, or do you want to just spell out your email address for people who want to get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. It's let's design at live.in. It's LEPS design at live.in.
Okay. All right. So this was a good talk, Mohit. I'm sure this was just a primer. So there's
Yeah.
the real magic and real challenge begins after this. So now it's definitely a topic for a more detailed talk, but it was a good primer. So thanks for your time. You can stay back. There is Raunaq, who is going to speak on a different talk, which is the flavor of the season right now. So pretty excited to hear about what he has to say about Pokemon Go. Raunaq.
Hi. Okay, let me try to quickly figure this out, how to show my presentation.
Can you also introduce yourself a bit, Raunaq, in the meantime?
Okay. So I'm just first gonna put up my slideshow. Okay. Does this work? You guys see my presentation? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so as I was waiting for my slot, I actually caught a new Pokemon. His name is Sandshrew. So that was fun. Um, okay, I'm going to talk about Pokemon Go. Thanks, Nikunj, for asking me to do this. It was pretty fun to sort of make up this slide deck and think about the experience behind this app. A little bit about myself. I'm Raunaq Gupta. I did my bachelor's in computer science, then did my master's in human-computer interaction. Then I was working as a designer for a company called Arkin, which recently got acquired by VMware. Currently, I'm sort of like a freelancer, primarily working on this application called Baloonr, which is used to get anonymous feedback within a particular group or a team. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Yeah, so like basically, like we're gonna talk about Pokemon Go. This is gonna be unlike Mohit's talk. Like this is gonna be like mostly like sort of like entertainment in a way, because it's like it's just like this crazy phenomena, and it has its roots in a lot of culture that has been happening for the past 20 years, and we'll talk about that. So yeah, what exactly is Pokemon Go? So it's an augmented reality video game, and by augmented reality, like what does that even mean? Like it's what it means is like mixed reality, basically where virtual and the real world sort of coexist together. And the simplest way to think about it is sort of like overlaying the real world, like this world that we we are existing in and we perceive as with information and interaction. And the simplest, most common augmentation that we use on a day-to-day basis is using navigation on Google Maps. So like you sort of like go to Google Maps, you put in your source and your destination, and you click on start giving me directions, and you see this map, and it tells you like where to go, which road to take, and like what to do in different situations.
So I think there was some problem at Raunaq's end. It seems he lost his internet connection.
You must not be available.
He lost. So we'll talk to him and try to get him online. In the meantime, uh, Mohit, you are still here, right?
Yes, Nikhil, I'm here.
Yeah. So why don't we take one of the leftover questions? In the meantime,
Oh, yeah.
Raunaq might join in.
Check. Check, check.
Right. So there's one question from
Yeah.
Deepesh. Yeah, Mohit.
Yeah.
Yes. So one question from Deepesh Tomar is there a difference in approaching CX in hand with UX between B2C and B2B? So is there a difference between B2C and B2B when it comes to CX versus UX?
Yes, it is. One primary difference that we often face is in B2B, the users who are going to use the product are mostly trained, right? So we have done some enterprise applications where there is a specific training session done for the personas or the users which we have for our product. Whereas in the customer segment, we go we are more inclined towards user psychology and how do people behave in different situations, how to use gamification into uh, our product design. Just to give you, these are just examples, but you get the feel. There's a training versus something which is learned over a period of time, and that is a primary difference between B2B and B2C.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, Ranak, welcome back.
Sorry, that's crazy. I think my computer went to sleep while I was like giving the presentation. I don't know why that happened.
I
Okay,
think
so I'm gonna start again. Can you tell me like which slide I was in on when I got disconnected?
so. You were talking about the Google Maps thing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so like okay, we didn't lose much. That's good. Okay, so yeah, so Google Maps is like the most common form of augmentation that like a lot of us use on a day-to-day basis. And like like then I was like talking about Google Glass, which was sort of making that augmentation like so much more personal than just like holding a mobile phone in your hand, because like you have this glass, like this thin slab of glass right in front of your eyes, and everything that you see will be sort of like augmented based on where you are and like what you're doing. And so augmented reality like has been there for some time, and like a lot of demos, a lot of projects have taken place. If we take the example of Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, um, they made this game called Ingress sometime in 2012, which was sort of like a precursor to Pokemon Go, and it got a lot of attention, like media attention, tech attention, but it obviously did not become like a huge game that a lot of people were playing at that point of time. And that's something that we will talk about, like why Pokemon Go has become so successful in its current incarnation. So yeah, so like there's the subfield called pervasive games, which is sort of like takes us like basically uses augmented reality to sort of put people into this virtual mixed reality environments where they can both be in the real world as well as be playing a game with like with fellow gamers. Um, like there are lots of other projects, like you can check these out. Like a lot of them like started off on Kickstarter, like Hologrid or Cast AR, and then there's this like big company called Magic Leap, which got acquired by Google, I think last year or like a few years back, which still hasn't. We still don't know like what exactly are they going to do, but like there has been this like speculation that like a lot of what they're going to be doing and showcasing will be regarding augmented reality. Um, Yeah, so let's talk about Pokemon Go and why is it so successful? Like why has it just taken off the internet online world as well as just like the world by storm? First of all, we have to realize that it's tapping into this 20-year-old cultural phenomenon of Pokemon. Like it started off somewhere in 1995. Um, uh, and it just it has been there for so long. Like a lot of people who are playing this game have always been they know what Pokemon is, and they have probably seen their TV shows, read their comic books, played older video games that existed. And even Pokemon Go, it's not a new concept even within the Pokemon series. A lot of video games that came out for Nintendo DS and other handheld consoles had the similar concept of catching Pokemons, and people a lot of hardcore gamers who were really into games would do that. They would buy all these games, and they would uh, catch Pokemon, exchange Pokemon, transfer them, and all that stuff. So a lot of game mechanics that go into this video game, Pokemon Go, have been tried and tested for a very long time. So it's from a game mechanic perspective, a lot of these things are nothing new. But what is new is that the fact that a large part of the population who has a mobile phone now can easily access such a game on their device. And the fact that all this mobile hardware is just so much better than something that you could have bought 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So being able to use GPS, being able to have just better screens, so that a better camera, so that you can actually use this augmented you can actually recreate this augmented reality within something as simple as a mobile phone that's in your hand is something that can only have happened in the past couple of years. And just the penetration of mobile devices in general has helped give a lot of attention to a game like this. So I'm gonna we're gonna talk about the user experience of Pokemon Go, the app, and it all starts with this such a simple premise of just collecting these pocket monsters, and the fact that you have now in your hand this small device, and you can look it is sort of like a window to the world, and you can look through it, and you can sort of see these virtual monsters living in the same space as you apparently, and you can collect them, and all those game mechanics combined sort of make it feel so real, like you're actually doing these things in real life. So as I was thinking about this, I realized a large part of the app's success is its ability to immerse a player into the game, and that's what augmented reality sort of strives to do, create an absolutely beautiful immersive environment. And the more immersive it is, the more engaged a player feels while playing the game. Obviously, in Pokemon Go's the app, I sort of thought about these are the first the six sort of characteristics or features that sort of help in the immersiveness of the content, and I'll go over them one by one. So the first is the first the game mechanic is the augmentation. You can open up your app and you can sort of see your world as it exists through a lens in which you can see these virtual monsters, and that's what we talked about. If you take the example of Google Maps, for instance, it shows you information and traffic and stuff like that. In Pokemon Go's case, it shows you these cute little monsters that you can collect, and that itself is such a breathtaking moment. As soon as you sort of take out your phone and you sort of point it in front of you, and if a Pokemon exists in that vicinity, virtually of course, you can see it and you can sort of feel wow, this guy's standing right next to my guitar or my cat or something like that. There's that, and then the second point is world exploration. So it sort of augments a world that you already know. So like in my case, I live in Pune, and I know my surroundings, I know the roads and the streets, but like when I'm using this app and I'm walking down these streets, and like I'm seeing these Pokemons to catch, it just feels like surreal in a way, because like wow, like I know all these places, but like I'm sort of seeing them in a new perspective. And that compels people to sort of explore their surroundings more, because they want to catch these Pokemons, and like sort of catch them and gain accomplishments and awards. And the third aspect is, and that's something also a core mechanic of Pokemon in general, is like once you catch a Pokemon, what do you do with it? Like like unlike like stamp collection where you collect a stamp and they like just stay within a book. In Pokemon's world, like once you have a Pokemon, you can sort of evolve them, give them more powers, and then fight other people and their Pokemons. And that sort of like creates a social engagement that helps people to sort of like bond together. There has been a lot of news recently about Pokemon Go where people have sort of met strangers just because everybody wanted to play Pokemon Go together. And that's like that's a great way to sort of engage the audience that's already on the app. And that sort of increases the longevity of the app itself. Like there might be people who will eventually end up collecting all the Pokemon, but then what then? So what they will do is like they will evolve their Pokemon, and then they'll keep fighting other people and like their Pokemons, and that helps sort of increase the longevity of the app, and in a ways, like improve the user experience. Another thing that you could do that the app lets you do is like customize your character, and that's it's sort of like a starting point, and that's a great way to sort of tell people that like this is you in this world, in this virtual world. Like it's not somebody else that you're playing. It's not like the guy from Assassin's Creed. It's not some other person. It's you, and you get to customize your character, and like then you get to play him or her in this game, and that sort of creates this like deep connection, or at least like a subtle connection between you and this player who's like a Pokemon trainer and who's going around this world collecting Pokemons. And lastly, like the amazing thing about Pokemon Go is that the content is unique to your surroundings. So like if you look at this photograph that I have on the slide deck, it's a photograph of me and my cat standing next to this Pokemon that just came out of nowhere in my house called Nidoran. And I just took this photograph, and I was like, it's such a unique thing. Like nobody else will have the same feeling of like seeing a Pokemon next to a pet. And like I saw that, I was like so happy. I was like, this is such a great moment to capture. And if you go online, if you go over the internet, that's what a lot of people have been doing. They have been like sort of like taking photographs of these Pokemon that appear out of nowhere within like surroundings that their own unique surroundings, and that sort of creates a lot of content, just a lot of user-generated content, and a unique gameplay that will never like sort of duplicate itself. And that also increases both the longevity, the engagement, as well as like a unique experience that somebody like the player who's playing will not get otherwise. And so, and lastly, like like as with any other like modern games, there's this like concept of monetization. And so like I'll tell a little bit about like Pokemon Go. Like I'm pretty sure like you have to have this thing called a Pokeball, and you have to throw this Pokeball at the Pokemon to sort of capture it. But the thing is like you only have so many Pokeballs for free, so and you will eventually run out of them. So how do you monetize an app? You sort of create this game currency called the Pokecoin, and you can buy Pokecoins via actual real currency. Like in this example, you can like buy 100 Pokecoins for like 79 euro cents. And so to make sure that the user is engaged and that the app is actually profitable, which is also a large part of user experience and commercialization of an app is to monetize to make sure that the app is able to sustain itself. And you must have heard the news about how Nintendo stocks increased by 7 million, or I think it was $7 billion in all because of Pokemon Go. And so they're doing a pretty good job of making sure that the app is self-sustainable. Okay, so those were sort of the various experience characteristics that the app has employed to make sure that people are deeply engaged and are enjoying the experience. But at the same time, the app also has a lot of pitfalls, and which might be room for improvement in the future for augmented reality apps in general. Obviously, when you're using a phone and you're looking at the world through the small screen in your hand, there's a reduced visual field and perception, and that's why a lot of news has happened where people have gone into accidents just because they weren't paying it enough attention. There's also this other news story about what Pokemon Go does is it basically uses satellite imagery and basically Google Maps interface to sort of read your environment and sort of overlay it with all this information about where the Pokemon are and all that stuff. But the thing is, a lot of times these places might exist in gated communities, for instance, and you might not be allowed to go in. And so there have been instances where people have forcefully entered places where they're not allowed to, just to catch a Pokemon, and that's crazy. But it also shows how much, how people are so much involved in this game. And I'll go through these examples, so let's talk about reduced visual field, for instance. So there's this news where a Pokemon Go player crashes into a cop car, gets caught on body camera, and why? It was he was playing this game, he totally didn't realize where he was, and he crashed into a cop car. And there have been places where people are putting up signs where don't drive distracted and play safe, because people are actually driving a car while playing the game so that they can catch more Pokemon faster. The second example was exploration without consent. This particular screenshot is from where I live, and you can see there's this small this small cube hovering over next to my player. That's called a Pokestop, by the way. And the thing is, that Pokestop is actually inside a gated community. I don't have access to that Pokestop unless I sort of tell the security guard that I want to enter this apartment building just because I want to see this Pokestop, which is which is almost met with a skepticism and disdain, you are playing a game, why do you need to be inside our community? We don't want you to be in. It has a lot of serious security implications as well. People can enter buildings without consent just because they want to catch a Pokemon, but there could be other people who could sort of abuse that privilege to do actual harm in real life. And the third is and that's what sort of segues into blurred boundaries. This particular news story was a Pokemon, this 18-year-old sort of broke into a house just to catch a virtual animal, just to catch a Pokemon, and that's not right. That's not correct. Pokemon Go has sort of opened up ethical issues in experiences. Where what is ethical and what's not, while you are sort of playing a video game that is sort of blurring the boundary between the virtual world and the real world. And young people, teenagers, they might not have as good a sense of what's right and what's wrong, but they're still playing this game. And we need to be able to make a user, we need to make an experience so that people are aware of what's acceptable and what's not. So yeah, so those were sort of pitfalls in this augmented reality experience domain. And like like I'm going to conclude the deck by basically asking like this really interesting question: like, could this have happened to any other game? Like, and to me, it feels like no. I think there were like a series of like there were a lot of things at play. Like for instance, if they hadn't used Pokemon as like the marketing material of like the basis of the game, this game might not have become as famous as it is right now. And so it's not just about user experience in this case, but it's also about a lot of other factors, cultural factors, and like basically like primarily cultural factors that have played a very important part in making this game such globally, phenomenally like successful. Um, and yeah, like that's it. Like that's Pokemon Go's experience in a nutshell. If you have questions, I'm willing to like take them on.
So that was a good overview, Ronak. I did not know that you could actually fight people and grab and grab their Pokemon or something.
Yeah, you can totally do that. Yeah.
That's scary. I mean, people can get
Yeah.
emotional and all of that stuff. So I think that was good. So I think we have some questions. One from Sana, uh, and this is about the research. So she's asking what kind of research was done before going ahead with Pokemon Go. Also, after the not so success of Ingress, what gave confidence
Hmm.
to them to the
I
organization?
wish I knew. I think that would be more handled by somebody who actually made Pokemon Go. But there are a lot of academic and research papers which have talked about how people perceive virtual characters in real life, like through screens. And Ingress did a pretty good job actually. And like I think they might have realized very early on that for something like this to be successful, especially after Ingress, they had to latch on to a more culturally known brand. And Pokemon is like such a great brand to latch on to as a game. It has amazing game mechanics for like collecting Pokemon, for instance, like having like being able to compete and fight with other Pokemon players, trainers. So I think that was probably like the crux of the research. As like we have all the game, like we have all this augmented mechanic in place, but we need to sort of add it to a cultural tie-in which people can relate to very easily. For me, I think that must have been the most important research question and answer that they got through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. And this is similar, the answer is very similar to the question that Saurabh someone is asking about again the research that there's a the two schools of thought. One says you need to research what users want, and the other is you tell what users want. So what category this would have fallen into?
I think like since Niantic already made Ingress previously, they must have realized like sure they got a lot of media attention and a lot of people were sort of like, giving them accolades for the kind of technology that they had created, but eventually the game in itself did not became successful. So they made this thing without thinking too much about what the user wants. And a lot of technology, a lot of cutting edge technology does not try to answer that question, like as to like what the user wants. A lot of advancements in user interfaces and like devices has happened purely because somebody was inquisitive enough to think about a possibility. But then to use that technology in a context where it can be commercialized, is highly successful, can make money. Those to make that happen, you do have to do your research and think about what users want. And I do feel that they thought about Pokemon as like that as an ideal ground. And those were the questions they might have been asking, and they probably got to Pokemon as the answer, which was a very good answer because like they obviously the research bore like pretty good fruit.
Yeah. All right, so that was useful. There might be more questions in later on, so we can take those questions if time remains. I think now we are almost short and out of time, so why don't we start with the next talk, Manoj? You there?
Hey, hello, check, check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yep.
Uh, hey guys, fascinating stuff here. Great to have you guys here. I'm speaking out of the office, like yeah, the in between work hours, right? So I'd like to talk about something that is entirely different from all the context that you've been getting, and it's a little lighter on the, impact angle, right? So I want to talk about designers more than design itself, right? Uh, right. So I will share my deck with you in a minute. Say hi. There's Govind behind me. We are in our design studio. Yeah, we're all good.
Hi, Govind.
Can you guys hear me? Right? Can I get a check from your side? Am I audible or am I making a complete fool of myself?
No, it is working perfectly fine.
Fantastic, fantastic. So there, let's do this. Right. Yeah. So recently, yeah. So I've been trying to get into the ecosystem here in Bangalore and see what kind of work goes down with respect to UX, and it's kind of very bleak actually. If you even talk to teams that are in really big orgs like say Mu Sigma or big orgs, you talk to their designers and they still feel like they're working in silos even after whatever Mayank has said. Uh, 1 second. After what Mohit had said, sorry, I was pretty sure I was getting the name wrong. Right?
That's fine.
My bad. Right? Yeah. So that's something that I have actually seen the need that people need to understand and people need to be educated about. And we being in the consulting business and we being claiming to be subject matter experts and building products for them, we kind of have that responsibility, and we at Wow Labz kind of try to do that, right? So a little bit about myself. After all that, I head the design team here at Wow Labz, and I've been at it for like a year and a half now. Right, so these are some of the learnings I've had in the consulting business, right? All right, so without much ado, I'll just get into the talk, right? So I want to talk about making UX designers on the job. So exactly that. I'm not going to talk about what is UX process. I'm not going to talk about what is best practice. It's purely anecdotal, and it's kind of like having a 3-member team that I came into, then becoming a 1-member team, and then forming a 3-member team all over again, right? So that's what I want to talk about. All right. So this is the gig, right? So if you are a reasonably good UX designer and you want to form a team that can do much work faster than say you would be able to do by yourself, these are the things you'll need. You need to take like regular designers or non-designers, or and then really need to groom them up into UX designers, because as Mohit rightly said, UX is not very old, right? There are probably like 2 or 3 courses in the country, and probably like under 300 400 really qualified people come out every year. So that being the number, do we need more UX designers? Of course we need more UX designers. Do all of these guys know what UX design is about? Probably not, right? So how do you in your org set up a design team? And this is how I did it. I don't know if it works for everybody, but it seems to work for us quite well. So this is my take on it. You have 2 options. You could go ahead and hire great talent, or you could go ahead and hire just talent and then make them great in the process, right? So I want to talk about the second situation where you get regular designers, probably not even from UX design, like you get product designers or you get graphic designers, or in my case right now we've got architects here and we are making UX designers out of them, right? So how do you go about it, right? So the first thing you need to do is to first thing you need to do is to tell them what the big consulting picture is, right? So that is the domain we work in as Wow Labz. So we are a turnkey product agency and we help our clients build products. So they have to know everything about a consulting business to actually contribute the way you want them to contribute as an org, right? So that is the first onboarding situation that you have to put them through. And that onboarding situation is to give them the real scenarios of what kind of time frames do you work in, what kind of budget constraints you work in, what kind of different types of clients you work with, and what are the different types of domains. And as an offshoot of that, they will try and understand why UX designers do all the things UX designers do, right? It can't be without a purpose. And having that first onboarding session actually helps them get that purpose. So that's tell them about the big picture of your org, right? Then put them in the deep end of your UX process. You could always say that we are a quality oriented company and we don't do stuff SAE, and you have to put them through all this stuff. Or there are two ways you can go about it. You can either give them like a whole bunch of resources to read and get them up to speed, and then put them in a real client project after doing a bunch of internal projects. That is one angle. What we do here in Wow Labz is we just put them on real projects, and I make sure that everything has the quality standards that we dictate out of our products. So that is what I mean by put them in the deep end of the UX process. So briefly touching upon UX process, I'll probably take 1 minute. Mohit kind of touched upon it a little bit. So it comes from basic design thinking and knowing what exactly you have and what exactly you can do. And it has a bunch of things, bunch of implications, which I'll talk about in a design thinking screen that I cooked up this morning, right? So it basically goes like this. It goes, our UX process goes like this. First, we map our ecosystem, which kind of handles a little bit of the CX portion that Mohit was talking about, and then we map out our user personas depending on whether it's a B2B client or a B2C client. There are different ways we go about it. Use cases, what are the credible use cases, what are not the credible use cases, what is the real problem here, is there a problem, are we solving the right problem? So these are all very important questions that we ask during this process, right? So I've talked till ecosystem, users, personas, use cases, then user journey mapping. Just like CX mapping, we do user journey mapping. Then we go about making our information architecture from all this digging that we have done. Then we make wireframes, visual design, interfacing with the client. All of that stuff goes in between it. It's a different talk, but I'm just going to touch upon it like that, right? Then the fourth point here is give very defined time-bound tasks, right? It's very easy for us to assume that the other person knows exactly what they're doing, and we at Wow Labz kind of don't make that assumption in the first place. It tells them exactly what they want, especially in their first projects. And we'll say that you're supposed to do this subtask in this entire scheme of things. And these are the things you need. And this is a generic layout or structure. Now go do your research, fill up with some data, and then we'll talk about it. And that's usually how we set off designers on these exploratory journeys. It's never a very brief, vague sort of brief. It's a very detailed, structured sort of brief, and you'll get a stipulated time frame to go ahead and complete it. And sometimes they come up with goals, sometimes they come up with not so great stuff. Sometimes we redo it, sometimes we do it again. So these sort of things happen. 5. The point number 5 is only direct the process and not an outcome. I'm talking about somebody in the design leadership sort of position. So this talk kind of is on design leadership and not so much on design process. Okay. So what you can do as a lead of a design team, in my opinion, is to actually let things happen, right? You could very well go into that spiral where you try to micromanage everything and you try to get everything up to your quality standards. I think that's having that approach will only make you unworkable, and nobody wants to work with you. So you basically set things up so that they can really do their thing and come back to you with something really solid they are happy with, and then you figure out what is good and what is bad and actually let them know what is good and what's bad. So that's point 5. Okay, I'm going to be a little more swifter than this, right?
Yeah, so actually, Manoj, we actually took more time, not because of you, but because of some issues earlier. So we had provisioned 1 hour for this, so we are almost 4 minutes above that time. So
Okay.
it's fine. You can quickly run through the most important parts, and then we will open up to questions, and then if there are more discussions.
Right. Will I have 10 minutes?
Yeah, let's wrap it up in
In 10 minutes. Okay, so I'll try and finish it off in 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So the you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
right? So I'm talking about design thinking for teams. So here I'm going to talk about guided brainstorming and on-the-fly definition of UX processes, right? So you could very well spend days trying to explain UX process to a designer. I'm saying instead of doing that, put them in a real UX process situation where you're doing things and you define terms as they happen, right? So that way they will think in context and they will imbibe whatever you're saying much faster than say you giving them a talk before actually doing the work. So that's what I mean by guided brainstorming and on-the-fly definition of UX processes. Right. So this, a lot of designers are very familiar with this particular image, and I've kind of skewed it up a little bit to put it in the context of the consulting situation, right? If you look at this is called the double diamond, problem solution design thinking thing, right? So basically, you see two diamonds in there. The first diamond is the problem space. The second diamond is the solution space. What I mean by this is to diverge and converge on thought, right? So first of all, so in the first portion, you're doing a certain thing, and the first diamond at the end of it, you get to a real problem definition. So initially, a client comes to you and gives you a problem definition. You don't know what to do with it, right? So as designers, it's always good practice to ask whether you're solving the right problem or are you just listening to your client? So we always believe that better design and better product comes out of asking really difficult questions early on and seeing if you are solving the right problem. So the first triangle is about to diverge thought and try and formulate that problem in as many ways as you can, and then to converge into one problem definition, right? The second triangle is, so now at the end of the first diamond, you have like one problem definition, and from there you converge into your solution space and think of multiple solutions you could have. It could be software solutions, it could be CX solutions, it could be real world product solutions, it could be service design solutions, it could be a whole bunch of things, right? So that is your solution space. So and from there you weigh the pros and cons and converge on one solution which you finally end up building. And obviously there are a lot of factors in play. That is also a different talk. I'm not going to talk about it much. Right. Now, obviously, in the consulting situation, you're always working with unrealistic delivery timelines, and your client will say, I want this product in 3 weeks' time, can you do it? And we'll negotiate, work it out like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 3 sprints, 4 sprints if you're familiar with Agile. And a lot of things have to be in place and be done in the right time, in the right way to actually make that delivery happen, right? So there are these things, Kanban flow, contributors, mind maps, paper prototypes. So these are all things we do so that we meet our timelines and we deliver quality product at the end of it, right? Right. So these are things that we do. Basically, in the design team, we kind of try and do stand-ups every morning, so we know exactly what everybody's doing on a day-by-day basis, on a week-by-week basis, on a sprint-by-sprint basis. So that's one. Always have 2 people on the job. It's so this is something I learned from my experience in the storage software development industry. I was with NetApp for 2 years. So everything NetApp does, they do it twice. So it's called reducing single point of failure, right? So we do that with people also here. Like 2 people are always on the job. Somebody's executing it, somebody's overseeing it. Sometimes the guy who's executing it becomes the guy who's overseeing it, and vice versa. So reduce single point of failure. So that's point 2. Exploration with purpose and converge often. So when you're doing design thinking, it's very easy to get lost in the whole exploration trip. And so we try to limit that. We keep it time bound. We do our exploration and we often converge on something solid in that stipulated time frame. Point 4 is a repetition of point 3 because I think it's very important. And that's what most designers do wrong. Because after a certain point, it becomes just mental masturbation and nobody's really doing anything about it, right? So that has to be avoided in a design team sort of situation. Quick feedback loops. So this is something as management you can really help your design team with. You basically get all the people who have to give feedback available on time, notify them in advance so that design work never gets stopped. So that's quick feedback loops. Right. Hiring for a design team, right? So this is I briefly touched upon this. So we kind of tend to hire outliers. We go for attitude more than skill sometimes because it's important. Because you have to function like a machine, right? When you're a design team, you're no longer a single designer. Your opinion is not the only opinion. And you need people with great attitude to be open to opinions and change things on the fly and make the better product and not your product. So that's about this. So right. So this is something I keep telling designers over and over. People I meet at events, people who come for our events here at Wow Labs. Design is about storytelling. It's all about narrative, right? It's about being in other people's shoes and thinking about what they will understand. How can you give it to them such that they'll understand? And people generally understand stories very well, and people generally understand linear stories better than non-linear memento type stories, right? So design, so what that forces you to do is to take away things and do your less is more, and uh, and narrate for impact and stuff like that. So we have a great story with your design team for products is what we do here at Wow Labs, and that is our prime focus. We are kind of going away from being the super efficient design team to the super great storytelling design team, right? So that's been a paradigm shift for us in the last 1 year. So that's happening. Third point is imagine in the real world. What I mean by imagine in the real world is that you should think of real situations rather than be caught up in this hypothetical, oh, there is not enough technology to build it right now sort of situation, right? Because you can do that as a product company when you're funded and you're like 800 people, you can do that. But when you are a lean consulting agency with like 20 people, chances are you will end up in very deep time constraints if you end up imagining the unreal, right? And fourth point is extremely important. It's about the diversity in your team and having women designers in your team if you have design team, because their opinions are very different from male designers opinions, and it makes a lot of impact. I probably will do a talk on this sometime. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things that I have learned working with you know female designers, because male designers cannot think like female designers, and you have to put that diversity into your team to actually get great design out, right? What are we trying to do in the design team at Wow Labs? We are trying to make great storytellers with great hands-on skills so that they can be autonomous UX designers without the help of other people also, right? They kind of well versed with all the different touch points a UX designer has to be well versed with, including UI and graphic design and branding and brand narrative, all of that stuff, right? Design first product consulting practice. So I see a lot of consulting practices do this wrong. They work as dev shops. They just take your client's design as it is and then they try to build it, and they finally after like 4 months of effort they figure out they can't build it. So being a design first product consulting helps. So you design first and then you build, right? So this is about sticking to timelines and really getting things out on time, because this is something I've noticed. If a design team slips by a week, your product team is not going to slip by 1 week. They're going to slip by for 4 weeks, and that's usually how it pans out. And that has to be avoided at all times. And the last point here is kind of important. Let the design team do their thing. What I mean by that is sometimes you get too many constraints and you restrict your designer's thought, and you put them in this funnel, and then they're like they can only think within that. It's when you do that, what you're restricting is an opportunity to innovate and opportunity to create a narrative that is actually compelling and impactful. So that has to be avoided, and that's the job of the management to let that happen and have some sort of failed explorations once in a while, because that is how great design comes about. Right. Getting designers up to speed is the last, I think. Getting designers up to speed is actually getting them to do things, and what do they need to do that, right? So they need to learn by doing. It's not about taking big classes to them. No, they have to actually do the work, and then they'll learn faster. And having a culture of great design critique is important in a design team, because whatever one designer does not make sense to the other designer, then it has to be critiqued till there is some sort of consensus, and that usually brings about better design, right? Third point is very important if you're a design leader. Like you have to bet on people, and you have to bet with enough time in hand so that you can actually salvage that situation yourself if you have to. So that is what I mean by bet on people and time as a contingency plan. Right, and this is kind of like the fourth point is kind of like a rule of thumb which we follow here in Wow Labs. So any hire that comes here, whatever domain they are in, they get to do at least everything once in the first 10 days of work, and that way they know exactly what we're doing and they get a flavor of what are the different kinds of R&Rs they can have, roles and responsibilities, and that's important. Right, building team skills and morale. So I'm going to talk about something very specific here. So how do you make better designers out of people, right? So the first thing, UX Roundtable is an event we do on a month-by-month basis. We invite startups and we discuss their UX. It's very hands-on, it's very real world, and we solve real problems that are happening at that point in time. So, so that's UX Roundtable. That gives our designers a great feel of what is going in the ecosystem, what is the different domains looking like, all of those stuff. Composition layout reviews we do is part of design critique. We do it often. Photo works on Instagram is to better improve composition, better improve sense of color, color theory in play. All of those nitty-gritty graphic design stuff, they get ironed out when you do a whole bunch of these photo walks on Instagram. Uh, Curation with Pinterest is an exploratory exercise we encourage all of our designers to do, and they end up doing it for on a project by project basis. Sometimes on a out of curiosity, they put together trend reports, they put together stuff that's going on, what other great agencies are doing. You end up looking at all of that stuff and curating it in Pinterest. Uh, then on-demand graphic design collateral. Just because you're a design team that specializes in UX doesn't mean that you're going to be a hotty-totty design team that will not do any work. So as an org, you will need a lot of marketing collateral, you need a lot of sales collateral. All of that stuff goes through you, and we are always open to it, and we always make time in between products to make that happen, and that's important. That flexes all your graphic design muscles as designers, and we feel graphic design, UX design, and brand consulting also have to go hand in hand, and that is how you better understand products and deliver better products. So yeah, that's it. Prototype often, prototype fast, and that's a wrap. Questions?
All right, Manoj. So yeah, so there was a bunch of practical insights. Definitely would be useful for people who are building their teams, building their workflows of how the whole org of workflows around building products and consulting. So one question that we have from Sana is, uh, I think we'll be only able to take one question right now. The question is about when you hire designers and when they are learning, they are bound to make mistakes in the initial
Correct.
days. So how do you handle these mistakes along with a deadline?
Correct. So what was the question again? Like they will make mistakes, so how do we handle it?
So they will make mistakes. You are betting on people. They will make mistakes. If they are going to make costly mistakes, how will your deadlines will slip? So how will you prevent that?
Right. So that is a very dicey area, right? So you don't know if they'll deliver on the first attempt. We don't know if they deliver on the second attempt. So it's always that is the bet portion, right? How do you avoid that pitfall? And I think you avoid that pitfall by being around. As a design leader, you cannot be always in management meetings, and you cannot not see what your team is doing. I'm not saying weekly reviews. I'm saying 4-hour reviews. Like you send them on a task for 4 hours, then you look at the task after 4 hours and see what is done. Then you catch these flags before they actually happen, right? And that's the only way you can mitigate it, right? Sometimes you put somebody on a job and they do it, and so far fortunately with us we don't have too many slackers, and we can't afford to have too many slackers, and we kind of run a tight schedule. So that way you could say it's a little bit of micromanagement, but that kind of eases out with practice. It only happens in the first couple of projects. Then you put that trust on the other guy, and sometimes we have three-member design team. We end up doing 3 products. That happens, right? And how do we do all this? We make the other guy a contributor. Like we make him a sounding board, and we bounce our ideas off of him. That's another way of maintaining quality. Yeah, that's my take on it. You catch fast, and then you don't have big costly mistakes.
All right, so that was good. Mohit and Ronak, do you want to add something to what Manoj described? You have any if you have any insights on your of your own which you would like to share, then you can share, and then we can wrap up.
Hey, no, I mean, most of the things he has already talked about. Nothing really specific, but I agree to almost everything what he has said.
Okay. Okay, Ronak, I think is busy playing Pokemon again, so I
That's funny.
where did you find it this time?
um,
On the
no,
hangout?
they're all over the place.
On the hangout?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll let you go back to your Pokemon, and I think we already over our allotted time for the talk, but I think it's fine. We had a good time. It was a pretty insightful discussion. So thank you for your time, everyone. Please take the survey. There's a link on the right in the Q&A window. Help us improve. Tell us how the talks were. Did you like them, and how we can improve in future. And Ronak, Mohit, and Manoj, thanks so much for your time. We hope to have you back sometime soon. Whenever you have interesting topics to share, let us know, and then we would love to have.
Yeah, right. Vinny, thank you so much for the opportunity here. Manoj here. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, if there are startups out there, if you want to have Wow Labs have a look at your product, you can always register for UX Roundtable and come down, and I'll be more than happy to have a look at your stuff.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yep,
thanks for
sounds good.
having me. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys, so much,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a
Yeah,
good
you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.